Welcome to what we call the Great Debate right here on the Late Night Show. Top 5 countdown straight down to the number 1 candidates. Of course, the Late Night Show always believes in bringing you the different perspectives from the different parties. There are 9 political parties that are taking part in this snap election set for the 19th of August. Of course, we have 4 of the 9 political parties represented today. Before I do my rant about those who did not show up today, my co-host today, co-moderator, I can't believe I get her on this platform. Bibi Hodge, what's up?
Bibi Hodge is okay.
Bibi Hodge, sharp?
Very good.
You good?
Very good. I learned a lot today.
You learned a lot today?
Yes, Andrew.
Okay.
I thought I'm the only one who has to deal with you, but I discovered a lot.
Bibi,
Discovered.
behave yourself. This is a formal setting.
It is.
Okay, so now it's all about the candidates we have today. Now, before we start, now there are 9 political parties that have postulated themselves. Tuesday gone, we have the National Alliance Democratic Party, of course, the URSM. Let me do it by the way in government so that we're not confused. So, in government, as far as the opposition parties, you have the UP and the National Alliance. Then, of course, the 2x4, which is the NO, the URSM, and of course, the DP and the PFP. As you know, PFP not coming here for sure because they're scared. As usual, afraid. The trolls on the internet, they will never come in person. So they have mouth on their own platforms, which is fine. To each his own. Then, of course, you have the No Party. Don't get me started on that. Chris, I know how he is. But at least if I tell you you could come for free, send your candidates, man. I know things rough, but come on, man. And of course, the Democratic Party. Auntie Sarah, I'm disappointed. It's not my fault that Andy did what he did. You took it personal, no problem. But I am here for you. There are 4 more weeks to go. You missed this one today, which is fine. Viren, that's why I like Cookie better. Anyway, those who did not come, the OMC, of course, number 5, they're not going to come because, not everybody could be Olivier. And of course, then you have the ECE. They only have 3 candidates, so therefore, we only going to get them for the leaders debate. Yes. Bibi.
And then what happened to the Sam?
So no, wait, Sam, but Sam is here. So I have everything great to say about the Sam.
So you have to tell them they're here.
Wait, man. So now let me go into the introduction of who actually decide to come on the Great Debate, because the Great Debate is a debate show. It's not the late night, so you get behave, Andrew, and you get, I don't know about behave, Bibi.
Behave.
I don't know about behave. She's SMNU, so I can't speak for her. But you plan to behave, right?
Maybe.
Okay, so let's go into the introduction. We start off with, of course, the former leader of the United People's Party, no candidate number 5, I believe. Good day, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Rolando Bryson, candidate number 5 on the United People's Party.
All right.
Me? Good day to viewers and listeners out there. My name is Rhoda Arundel. I'm candidate number 5 on the Sualiga Action Movement, also known as SAM.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Daryl York. I'm also candidate number 5 on the National Alliance slate.
Blessed day, Shamira Rosenberg, candidate number 5 on the URSM slate.
All right. Thank you so much for coming, of course. As you know, what we're going to do today is we are going to ask some questions based on the questions we asked this specific candidate. There is a chance for rebuttal. Of course, thereafter, there is a minute and a half to rebut. Please, let's keep it cordial. I know that this election season, we will be, everybody will be passionate. So we'll go to Bibi, who's going to ask the first question to the first candidate. Bibi.
All right, good afternoon, candidates. It's a pleasure having you guys here today. My first question, we're going to deal with what we call independence.
Oh.
First question,
That's okay.
Dr. Rhoda Arundel
Yes,
from
ma'am.
Sam. The government of an independent country has three primary responsibilities to its citizens: sovereignty, ability to protect its citizens not only from one another but also from outside attack, authority, the power to create and enforce rules or laws, legitimacy, the degree to which people accept the authority of government. With this in mind, do you think St. Martin is ready for independence?
Good afternoon. Thanks again for that question. First, let me ask for clarity. Where did you source that in terms of the authority for independence? What was the source for that?
That's my own information.
Oh, because I wanna dispute it, if you don't mind.
And you dispute what?
Okay, because first of all, I'll give you a very good example based on the things that you put there. I'll give you Grenada. You know, Carriacou was just hit by a hurricane. They have, for example, no army, but they are very independent states. I want to put that out there because there are countries in the world that do not have armies. Like you think of the Vatican, you can think of places like Monaco. You know, there are ways to work that out. So that's why I asked what's the source. Okay, so your question was, do I think that St. Martin is ready for independence? And the word that you used was ready, right? Okay, I'll answer it like this. For the last 40 years plus, I've been a part of the Independence for St. Martin movement, and I've never heard anybody in the movement say the word ready, as in now at the moment, even though I think we are physically ready, structurally ready. I believe that we are. But I've never heard anybody use that. So every time I hear the word ready, it usually comes from someone who was anti-independence. Yeah, usually when it comes up, it's never been proposed by anybody who was in the pro-independence movement. And so when they say that, my question is always, what would be your list of things that you think would be required to be ready? And then I can debate that list, because if you just give me this vague term ready, I can't debate that because that's an opinion, and I don't want to debate opinions. I debate facts. And so you would need to present to me a list of things that would say check, 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 check. Now we're ready, and then I can debate that. Okay, so where readiness is concerned, or where the position of the people in the movement that I know what their position has always been, that there needs to be a transition from current status to the desired status. And in that transition is where you prepare based on the will. And one of the things that we have always asked in the movement is, let's have a referendum. Because that's the beginning stage to see if that's what the people want, and then take it from there.
Any rebuttal?
I would like to, it's not really a rebuttal, Andy, but also add to what Dr. Rhoda Arundel mentioned. When you talk about independence, I think you need to prepare for independence. You need to look at, for example, the pointers that I believe need to be looked at. Economic stability. You can look at political and social readiness. We need to prepare our people for that, but also legislative readiness, because if you want to go to independence, you also need to look at the laws. So before speaking about ready, I believe we need to talk about preparing towards the step. And it is a must eventually, but you cannot just say we are ready and let the people also give their input through a referendum. And also the cultural and national identity. So those pointers I think we need to look at, and then we can talk about how to move forward.
All right. Kathy Price.
Yeah, I agree certainly that a referendum is something that I hold very highly. As in a democracy, I see it as the highest form of democracy, because as a member of parliament, it is me telling the population, I am not going to take the decision until I hear from you. And I will respect your decision and then pass that legislation that you want, which is yes for independence or no. Mm-hmm. One of the things that came up, and I think Dr. Arundel would agree, as a member of parliament, I've been the most to push that point forward, that let us ask the people. Okay. And one of the things we do have to recognize that is missing and not many people are speaking of is, who is the St. Martiner that is going to vote in such a referendum? Is it just going to be have a Dutch passport? Is it going to be this? So the identifying of a St. Martiner has to go hand in hand, I believe. It's something that we have to debate within our country and recognize that more and more our own people are starting to wonder, well, am I still a part of this society? And will I be part of the decision making for the future of St. Martin? So I think identifying a St. Martiner is an important step towards going to independence.
All right. Okay,
Well, what I can say on that, turning to the word ready and readiness, a baby never knows it's ready to walk until it starts to walk.
Amen.
So that word changes the whole framework of the question and the meaning of the question. So when it comes to that, I would say I wouldn't think that the question should be, is St. Martin ready? The question should be, does St. Martin want to be independent?
Exactly.
That's all I have to add to that.
Doc.
Yeah.
Fine.
I absolutely, yes. And so you hear, I don't think anybody that we've ever talked to in the movement said no to independence. The question is how. And we may disagree on the how, but that's for debate later. But I'll say this. I was a child when St. Kitts went. And the same conversation that St. Kitts was having when I was 15, 16 years, today we are still having. I came back from school in 1989, and we were having the exact same conversation. And my questions then has been, somebody will have to start the preparation. That's what I've been doing. That's what we've been doing in 1SXM. That's what we're doing, trying to sensitize people, bring out the information. There are a number of books that have been prepared on the topic, but we're saying the information is there for those who would like to know.
All right. Let me go to
To come back on the word ready, I think the question should be more coming back on the referendum. Are the St. Martin people ready to make that decision? And building on what has already previously been said, the awareness, the pros, the cons, being educated on all what comes with being independent and in the current status that we have now when it comes to disaster management, when it comes to that disaster prevention, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to all these different topics. I don't think, if you have to apply the word already, I don't think the awareness is there, the education is there at the current moment, and that's something we need to really work towards. Because a lot of people who want independence, you have those that want independence, and you have those, in my estimation, that doesn't know what comes with independence. So to come back on what was previously said, you don't really have those that don't want it at all. You either have those that have the education, or it's a very small minority. I think.
Yeah.
But then,
Can I say something on that too?
But that's the thing, I don't want it to be.
No, but it is a debate, right?
yeah.
Because here's the thing about this conversation about awareness. In every cycle of a referendum, if you take 1994 and you take 2000, there's a period where the referendum committee gives the information to the society and has the pros and the cons of each status. And this is all part of that conversation. So once a decision is made that we want to have this referendum on this date on yes or no to independence, you prepare a campaign that's very neutral.
Yes.
What are the facts? What are the pros and the cons of the status that you're asking the people to choose on? That's how it works in every other referendum.
Okay, so let me piggyback a little bit on Baby's question with the independence. And let me say, based on what all the comments that I've heard so far, what about what is stopping St. Martin, or at least the Parliament of St. Martin, to make a firm decision that a referendum will take place on this particular date? Is it something that maybe it's a non-priority, or because we're dealing with so much other things, and independence is the last thing on our mind? Just to get some feeling.
Who's the question directed at?
I'm going to start.
Because as a parliamentarian, right? Are you going on this way?
Yeah, I went this way, so everybody
Okay.
gets a piece.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the things in St. Martin, when you talk about all these legislative things, like I mentioned, and Dr. Arundel has been present in many of those meetings of the Constitutional Affairs Committee. I will be very frank and say a lot of it has to do with the laziness of parliamentarians. I was surrounded by some people that were given tasks within the committee. You research the educational aspect. You research the legal aspect. Up until the day, my last day in Parliament, none of that work was done.
But that information was there.
The information was given. We had steering committees that came and advised, and this happens throughout the Parliament. Where we want to fix the Justice Criminal Code, we help, and then all of a sudden you don't see parliamentarians showing up. None of them are doing their work. All of these things, if we don't fix the work ethic of parliamentarians to actually take a thing like this, which is, so people know, a referendum is a piece of legislation. It's something that needs to be drafted and put out to the public. The work isn't being done by a lot of the parliamentarians. And that is where a lot of things stall. You hear the speech, you hear the we for it, and then when it's time to actually do the work, that's where you see the other parliamentarians kind of go to the wayside. Oh, I was busy. Oh, I was off island. That's the type of things I heard within the committee that was very disappointing. I'm just one member of parliament. I can bring them to the water to drink, but it's up to them to do their work as well.
All right. Don.
Two things. Absolutely correct. But there's also another factor. It's called leadership. I've heard elected people leading us, including current leader, saying that we're not ready. And that's because they're not going to have that conversation. We're not even going to ask for a referendum. So it's about the will, the political will to go and ask the people. And my question to that is always like, what are you afraid of if you're afraid to go ask the people whether or not they want independence? So I always question the motives when I hear those statements. The other thing has to do with there's a drive outside of St. Martin to keep the islands together in something called the Kingdom Islands. There's a report written on that. We know about the report, but there's also a drive to keep these islands together at all costs. Not about what they want for themselves, but they must be kept together. And there's this drive, if you notice, pay attention to some of the actions about a kingdom identity that's now being discussed to try to keep them together at all costs. While the region is trying to decolonize, these islands are being forced to stay together in a monetary union, in a different political structure, different things that are being so we have to decide as St. Martiners what's best for us. Not what's best for the kingdom or what's best for the outsiders, what's best for us. And I think we need people who are willing to go to the St. Martin people and say, what do you want? And I will fight for what you want.
All right. Let's see.
Well, to me, it comes down to proper prior planning. A bit of everything that has already been said. You have those that don't want it and don't want to say it out loud. You have those that are elected and either do not want to put in the work or cannot put in the work. But you also have, in my estimation, a question of priority. We just had, not just, but 15 years ago, 14 years ago, we had 10-10-10. And then a whole structure was created. And that structure is the structure in which we still operate today. That structure was never reviewed, that structure was never revised, and here we are talking about another structure. A lot of times we fall in the habit of reinventing the wheel where we don't learn from our past mistakes. And we're working towards it. A lot of us say we want independence, but the question is, are we really working towards it? And that is something that needs to be brought to the light. And do we really want it? Yes, no. If you want to have a referendum, how are we going to do that referendum? Because referendums are held all over the world. And because sometimes it's not structured in the right way, nothing comes out of it. So a referendum is easy to say, we're going to just do it, everybody's going to vote. What is going to be the quota? What is going to be accepted? What is not going to be accepted? All these type of things needs to be figured out, and you need 15 capable people in order to do that.
Let's hold it.
Yeah, and thank you, Andrew. What I want to say is that at the end, as all mentioned, who do you choose as your representative? Because if you have 15 members of parliament that come to work when it's a closed door meeting, not only when it's public meetings, that know what their focus points are, that are in the committees, the different committees that we have, also one that is also focused on referendums, kingdom laws, etc., that we know, okay, we are going to tackle this in this way, you're going to bring it to the table, we're going to ask specialists. So therefore, it always boils down to the key and to the people. Who do you choose? Because you need to choose people that are there to work country above self, and it doesn't matter what type of topic it is, but a topic for the people that the people can benefit from. And I believe we need to bring it to the table of Parliament.
All right. After listening to what you guys have said regarding the question of independence already, then I'll jump to another question dealing with the same topic. In the year 2000, the voters of St. Martin voted in favor of a separate status. It took us 10 years before separate status could be achieved. 10 years later, a country within the kingdom. Do you believe, and Dr. Arundel, I'm really calling you out on this one, do you believe St. Martin gained more autonomy, or was the country taken 10 steps backwards into colonialism?
Tell me when you start to count, because I want to use my 2 minutes. Well.
We counted.
Okay, I want to use the 2 minutes. Well, two things. Okay, good. First of all, I would never use the word country to refer to St. Martin. I don't say country Antigua, country St. Lucia. We know it's a territory of the kingdom. So that's number one. So you're asking me if I believe that we gain more autonomy. I did not vote for 10-10-10. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's a thing. It's what the St. Martin people call neither fish nor fowl. You either want independence or you don't. So you cannot prepare for something that you don't want. So when you're telling me that 10-10-10 was a preparation for independence, but you didn't vote for independence, I want to know how are you preparing for it if you never voted for it, if you never wanted it. You cannot prepare for something you didn't want. So to me, that's a misnomer, number one. It's a moot question. The question has to be, do you want independence or not? And if you do want independence, how are we going to work towards that goal? And according to United Nations requirement that the Netherlands must cooperate with us moving to that status and leaving us better than we were before the decision. Those are the rules for independence. Everything else is baby house, making up the thing as you go. Don't ask me any questions about 10-10.
All right, well said. If anybody wanted to rebut, no, you good? Okay, let me move on to
Nobody
the,
wants to say anything
the
about
United People's
autonomy.
Party, candidate Rhonda Bryson, number 5, former leader of the UP. As far as the criticism when it comes to the past 4 years with the coalition with the National Alliance and some independent members, the notion was given that most of the issues that affect St. Martin today are a result of bad governing by the UP and the National Alliance and independent members. With that narrative, with that notion by some of the critics, what would you say to that? With you being the leader before, and now just a candidate trying back for office.
Well, I would focus, of course, on the political party that I represent. From coming into office, the way the coalition formed, we had the Ministry of TIAT and the Ministry of VSA. Of course, within a coalition, you need to have the cohesion to make sure that certain things can coincide, like TIAT with finance and so on. But when it comes to the ministries and what we had to do from Parliament, we made sure to do our part to fix a lot of the things that have been going wrong for a very long time. First of all, with the Ministry of VSA, a lot of people may forget, but we went into the COVID-19 crisis and we were the first country in the world to be able to find the balance between reopening your country and still having your economy move, while many other countries just took the extreme of just shutting down. Those were things that could have caused irreparable damage to your country, because today, a lot of the countries are suffering, even around the world, inflation rates and so on, because you had to print money or pump money into your economy because there was no economy. St. Martin was spared the brunt of that. We have the lowest inflation rates compared to many of the Caribbean countries. When I look at our performance as a party and my goals as a member of Parliament, I think we achieved those goals to fix a lot of the wrongs through legislation, getting the funding for the police, being able to handle COVID-19, getting the hospitals started for the first time in 7 years. All of these things fell under us. And for our part and for my part, my goal was always do your part. Because if all of us was doing our work, then some of those issues might have been resolved. But let me say this. A lot of times, because it's a 4-year term, people look and think that within those 4 years, you're going to solve, for example, a 30-year generator problem or a 30-year Mullet Bay problem. We have to start to also realize that we need long-term vision for our country. If we want to do renewables, that might be a 10-year plan. But what are we going to do in the first 4 years to reach to that point? That is what we have continued to do, to lay the groundwork that if a hospital is going to take 6 years, we did all we could in the first 4 years where the foundation is built, the funding is secured, etc. So I believe that whatever anyone may think about the performance of the United People's Party, I think overall no one can deny the level of work that I contributed towards that.
Thank you.
Oh, you want me to rebut on that?
Or anybody.
The only thing I will say is, we were not in government. I have had the good fortune to be a part of the UP, but not during this cycle because I chose not to participate in December and January. But I've seen the work. I, as a member of UP, not against the UP per se, but against the direction St. Martin was going, and I was pained because as a St. Martiner, I'm now 57, going on 58 years. I've never seen my country so dependent on the Netherlands like this time. And that's something I don't know, and that was foreign to my spirit. So I couldn't live with it. I grew up being a person, a child of being self-sufficient, self-reliant, taking care of yourself. We never looked to government for anything when I was growing up because you took care of yourself within your communities, within your homes. And now I see this idea that we have to beg and we have to look helpless. And I see loans that will put 2 or 3 generations of St. Martiners in a position that I am not comfortable with. So that is my criticism of my government, and it would have been any government regardless of who sat there. The minute you make me look more dependent and look like I cannot be a Caribbean woman who could be a sovereign entity in this region, that pains me. And it is my duty, when elected, to do everything in my power to get us out of that status.
Thank you. Ms. Young.
No, pass that one.
All right.
Yes. Thank you for the question. As we all know, I'm a newly elected member, 4 months in Parliament, and the only question I'm asking myself is, we have all these issues popping up now, but where was the preparation? If you know an issue will come about, I would think you would prepare to make sure that we have structured planning that the issue will not happen. And I'm just wondering, and I'm just focused on making sure that when we are reaching August 19th and the new members of parliament are elected and a new government is formed, that we will be looking at the future, and preparation is therefore key. We need to look at the short-term, mid-term, and long-term solutions so that we make sure that we will not fall in a situation like this again, such as GB, for example. That's my answer to that question.
Yeah, Ms. Young.
I tend to disagree, in the sense of, if you plan to make plans based on the future without reflecting on the past, that's you're making promises already that you can't fulfill. A lot of problems that we are experiencing today is because there's lack of reflection, a lack of going over what has been done and not been done in the past. For example, it was just said that you have to plan in advance, or you have to foresee things happening. A sinkhole that was unattended to, a road that was unattended to for 40 years, you didn't see happen. You couldn't see happening. You know, a lot of times for the last year in my previous campaign, I have been saying the fact that you have to have a vision and act on that vision, and not just make separate plans working towards left, right, up, down, going backwards, going forwards. The next minister comes in, want to do something differently. A lot of times we run a campaign, we make a coalition, and we go in and act like the 2 parties have all the answers, know all the answers, and will be there for the next 50 years as well. You also need collaboration with the parties that are not in government as well, to ensure that in the event of anything else happening, however election can go, that you have continuation in that vision. And that's what I said, the first question that was posed to me last year when I was running. It was last year already. What's the first thing you would like to do once elected to parliament? And I said, challenge the system, in the sense of, when you're making a governing program or when you're making a manifesto, do not only include the parties that are in the coalition. Now, I'm not saying you have to do things 50-50, but you also have to include those in the opposition as well, because you never know what's going to happen 4 years from now, 8 years from now, that when a new party goes in, you have a whole new direction.
I would like to answer, because you rebutted on what I said, actually, and I would like to answer to that shortly, because at the end, it boils down to preparation. If you know that something happened in the past, how are you going to tackle it in the future to avoid that from happening? So therefore, preparation is key.
Okay.
Can I say something?
When we come back from
Please.
the break, we shall continue the great debate right here. Thank you so much for watching. Maybe okay?
You got to tell them. You got to tell them. Thank you on that one.
You're good. She don't need the water.
Yeah, nothing to
Stay
say.
with us.
Yeah.
We shall be
You wanna-
right back.
you wanna-
At GEBE, we take the safety and quality of your water seriously. Every day, our dedicated sample collectors venture into the field, visiting the places that matter to you: water tanks, school, supermarkets, home, and high-risk areas. Once these samples return to our water quality lab at KB, they embark on a journey that safeguards your well-being. Our dedicated analysts take over, sending these samples to the microbiology and chemistry department, respectively. This is where the magic happens. We test for a range of parameters, and we do this every single day, no matter what, including holidays and weekends. In our microbiology department, we focus on 2 major tests targeting various bacteria. Confirmation tests are conducted, and we have plans in place in case the results are confirmed. And then we do it all over again, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Rain or shine, your water safety never takes a day off. So when you turn on the tap and enjoy a glass of GEBE's water, you can do so with confidence. GEBE, the power to serve.
At SXM, we're taking travel and tourism to new heights. Here we boast spacious check-in areas, 10 passport control points, comfortable departure lounges, and an exciting new airport mall. Finally, there's an airport in the Caribbean that takes your travel plans as seriously as you do. Princess Juliana International Airport. The experience will move you.
And I fall on my knees. Tell me how to wait to be. Tell me how to wait for. Tell me all that I should know.
Great job, Carl. Thank you. Jeremy, come on up. For the final word in the Spelling Bee Championship, please spell insurance.
Insurance. Nagico. Insurance.
That's correct. I hope your father can spell Nagico too.
Nagico is insurance. Insurance is Nagico.
Welcome back to the great debate right here on the Late Night Show. We have 4 of the 9 political parties here. You already know the story. If anything, rewind. We got, of course, of the USM Shamia Roseberry, candidate number 5. We have that Mr. Darrell York of the National Alliance, and of course, Ms. Rhoda Arinel, Dr. Rhoda Arinel of ESAM, and Ronald Bryson of the
You are up.
Yeah,
I am up.
Who are you 90?
All right, Bibi waited for me. Bibi, go.
All right. All right. My question is for former Member of Parliament, Rolando Bryson. St. Martin has seen its fair share of instability due to either coalition governments or possibly greed. Since you were the only elected member of Parliament that actually presented 21 draft laws, of which 14 were passed, if elected, do you plan to work on electoral reform and not just talk about electoral reform? I want to see something done about electoral reform. If you plan to work in it, what exactly are you planning to do?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, indeed, I've worked on various legislation, especially those that fall within the portfolios of the United People's Party at the time. And electoral reform, at the last 4 years, when I came into Parliament, I heard so many people talking so many ideas that, yeah, we're going to do this. And these are parliamentarians that's been there in the Netherlands and Talese Parliament that have way more experience than me. So I figured, you know what, Bryson? Go and fix the police situation. Go and solve the COVID issue. Go and get all of these issues solved because you have others within the Parliament that are tackling that issue. And to my surprise and my disappointment, that was not the case. It turned out to be what has happened for the last 14 years, where people talk electoral reform, but no one actually brought any firm initiatives. So I will be taking it upon myself, just like I've tackled many other issues, indeed to tackle electoral reform this time. One of the things I am researching in terms of the constitutional changes that would be required, that in and of itself is going to be an interesting situation because the authors of our Constitution, and I put in brackets Constitution, they would say that, well, before that constitutional change, to change our electoral system, we now have to go and ask present that change to the second chamber in the Netherlands, and a 2/3 majority of them need to approve that. All due respect to the new government, I wish us luck getting a majority with the PVV and so on to agree to such. I think the first step is to challenge that. Challenge the fact that no, we will bring such constitutional changes that we need to our electoral reform system, and make sure that it's clear that we will not be going that route. We will pass that as the Parliament of St. Martin, because I don't want to find a situation where we think we're going to get that route and we're going to have a kingdom partner that's going to agree that Bryson says we need to change the way someone goes independent, whether they can, for example, form a new government or not. Those are the things that need to be challenged, and then we bring the electoral reform.
And then rebut.
I let him go.
Yeah.
I have a very simple, I know my party is also one of those that's championing electoral reform, and I think it needs to be, but again, I vote for independence. I know one status that you don't have to go to anybody to ask them if they approve of whatever change you want to bring, and that is called independence. When you're in,
majority of Parliament.
but I'm saying, when you're in an independent country, you don't have to ask anybody if they approve of whatever changes you are going to bring to your constitution.
To come back on what the former leader, the leader of our party just said, that's my main problem with the way Parliament works, because hats off 14 reforms, but all I heard in the beginning of his soliloquy was, I assumed that others would have done it. And once elected to Parliament, in my estimation, from the outside looking in, because I've never been elected, it's 15 islands operating on their own. So you're going to do 20, this one going to do 0, that one's going to do 1, that one's going to assume this one is going to do that, that one's going to assume that one to do that. And this main problem is never tackled, which is electoral reform, which we're still talking about today. So we could sit down and say, hey, I did this, I assumed that. But at the end of the day, when you're elected as 15 members, it doesn't matter if you're on different parties. I've been preaching this. You have to work as a team. And we always say, yes, as soon as the election is over, there's no more colors, but clearly there still are colors.
Would you say then that the National Alliance having the prime ministership during the
Exactly,
last
correct.
they had issues with working with others then to get electoral reform done? Because at the end of the day, they were in charge of that particular.
Bearing in mind that they also had the largest amount of seats
In Parliament.
National Alliance on electoral reform.
Well, once that member is here, you could ask the member that question. But what I can say on that, coming into government, everybody acts like it's a very easy thing. I think the new government could tell you firsthand that it's one way on the opposition side, and the next way once you're actually in government. They make it seem, they made it sound easier than it really is. And at the end of the day, you will have those growing pains. At the end of the day, you will have to learn to work with one another. At the end of the day, in hindsight, it's 2020. You can always say, I could have done things differently. I could have done things this way. I could have done things that way. I'm sure in the 20 reforms that the good ex-MP did, there was maybe one he would survive. I could have read that line differently. At the end of the day, there's our things you could have done differently. But I wasn't there. I can't speak on that. Moving forward, I think it should be less talk and more action and more teamwork. Because at the end of the day, you're a team of 15 and not islands of 15.
I like the island.
I like it.
Yes. To add to that, recently we went as a delegation in Parliament to IPCO, and there's where I saw that we can work together. And I think we need to also practice that within Parliament, because as the ones that were in Parliament before, previous MP Bryson, he knows that when you go to IPCO, you go as a delegation, and the democratic deficit, and as well the making sure that that is being tackled, the dispute regulation, we are making moves with that finally. And if we don't go to the electoral reform, it is a must. It will benefit St. Martin. So why don't we put the differences aside and work for all the people of St. Martin? And then again, it boils down to, who do you elect as your members? Are they really coming to work, or are they coming for themselves to gain other things other than working as a member of Parliament? We need to think, we really need to think deep about who do we elect as our members.
Former MP Bryson had a comment.
I think you kind of mentioned where I wanted to go with that, because we can, on the one hand, I know my colleague Mr. York would say, yes, it's easy to say. Indeed, it is easy to say, let's just sit down, kumbaya, and work together. Even within a coalition, you mentioned, for example, the National Alliance had the role of prime minister. The prime minister more so even than the members of parliament, has the resources and responsibility to present to parliament the electoral reforms, which we can then debate and make such that you have a whole legal affairs department, you have international affairs department, and so on. So even within a coalition, when you're asking Prime Minister, where's the electoral reform and so on, you see that that teamwork can break. It might be priorities, it might be whatever. So ultimately, that is where I say, I think it's a very fair assumption I would make that I'm in a coalition with a Prime Minister that is in charge of electoral reform, and it's a fair assumption to say that those reforms would come. And I was wrong, because they did not come. So I'm saying now, I will take it upon myself next term to make that the top priority.
All right.
Wait, when it comes to one of my favorite topics, which is GB, I know that I took a while before I just had to ease you guys in before I start with GB, because the frustration that the population have, I think it would be unfair for us not to address it. So, we want to target and get into it, but let me just do my first part and then you go.
So that's
No,
a two-part question.
Yeah. So,
A and B.
so it's going to be specifically for MP Roseberg, because question to Rhoda Arinal went already, question to Rolando, so now we're going to
I get NGB. I get NGB.
So just as a general observation, you go and you answer how you feel you need to answer. Now, GB has been a frustration for everybody. Solutions have been presented by your Prime Minister.
Our Prime Minister.
Leader of the USM. So I guess you can tell us more than anyone about solutions when it comes to GB, but people are still a bit frustrated and they don't want to hear any stories. They just want solution and relief now. My question to you is, if elected, how will you deal with such an issue as GB?
Thank you for this question, Andrew. Yes, our Prime Minister is actively busy with GB. We have been seeing the different press releases coming out, also with the short-term, mid-term, and long-term solutions. By the end of July, beginning of August, we should have some relief, but it's not something that will be solved 1, 2, 3. To answer your question, I am not a specialist into technology. What I do know is that we have specialists working at this moment to tackle the GB issue. We do need to look at, okay, what are alternative solutions? And we have been communicating about that. You have seen the different press releases. But what I would like to focus on is the communication to the people, and also seeing as a member of parliament, because it's a parliamentary election, to make sure, okay, what laws can be implemented to make sure when a consumer have damaged materials, we have that already within GB, but how can we make sure that it is better enforced? How we can make sure that, for example, if you lose electricity, can you get compensation for that? So that the community will also understand, okay, they're busy working at it, but we are also getting compensation for it. Because at this moment, we have blackouts, for example, right? Or we have that current is going at certain hours, but we're not getting compensation for that. So I proposed within Parliament, I sent out a policy to the Prime Minister for GB to suggest that as well. So that's also on its way. So the community can also understand, okay, they're busy working on one side. It might take some kind of how longer than expected. You have a short-term, mid-term, and long-term solution. But on the other hand, I'm getting compensated for it. And then there's understanding from within the community.
Thank you. Any report before the takes over after the topic?
I don't know if I should wait for her answer or not.
Yeah. You guys want to hear how?
Is this the next question?
Yeah, no, it's well concerning GB, but just if you wanted to
Sure. After that, we could rebut on what she initially said, or
you could do it now. You could do it now.
I don't know what she's going to come with. So.
I know. That's a completely different question.
It's a completely different question.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll rebut now then. A lot of times we sit back and we hear the rhetoric of short-term, mid-term, long-term planning. But when it comes to, when you say planning, you actually have to plan and not just name. What I lack, what I don't see, is basically when you say something like long term, you say renewable energy and is loosely thrown. I don't think parties involved are aware of the pros and the cons that comes with renewable energy and forcing the issue too quick. Going into something, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I always say that European countries already had the solar revolution, and European countries already had the energy crisis. But here we are in St. Martin trying to reinvent the wheel like we don't know what we have to do already. We're talking about solar. We have no regulatory bodies in place to do that. We're talking about solar. We don't have any policies in place to organize the compensation of anything. We're speaking about compensation. We don't have no money to compensate anything. So loosely throwing these terms of compensation and solar and all these things that come with it, we're going to end up in the same problem these bigger countries ended up in. We always say St. Martin is years behind other countries. But that's a pro, but also that's a con, but also a pro. We have to use that in our benefit. Why are we going to make the same mistakes that the bigger countries already made? And I'm seeing us going down that same exact road by doing the same exact things and doing the same exact ways with just loosely communicating certain things to the public.
So how do we do better?
In my estimation, in my opinion, we need to come with a proper policy where continuation, not only of what already worked that already had been started in the past. In 2013, there was already a framework being written up, a policy being written up for a regulatory body, for this whole compensation story. That's already there. It's been written. Jerry Sardine wrote it. It's already there. But yet we sit down here and act like we don't have those things, and we have to reinvent the wheel, doing things all over that already has been done. Governing is about continuation. And I think a lot of times, like I brought it up earlier, instead of always focusing on the future, we have to reevaluate the past. And by reevaluating the past, we be like, hey, this is in the archives. Let's pull it up and let's make use of it now. And that's what's not being done.
Okay. Rebuttal from Mr. Bryson.
Thank you. A lot of the ideas you hear, like MP Roseberg mentioned different things, what we can do. What is missing from a lot of that, I kind of agree with what Mr. York is saying, that, okay, it's nice ideas, but you don't flesh out exactly one of the key things. How are you going to pay for this? And I'm not hearing that from neither the Prime Minister, nor this. For example, generators are coming. What I predict, and I made a prediction at the last debate last year about what's going to happen with GB if we don't solve the billing issue, and today we see that as a reality. If we do not come out to the public and definitely explain how these generators are going, or show that there's an alternative, it means that the consumer is going to be paying and covering those millions of dollars because they're not there. What is going to happen? On top of the fuel cloud, you're going to charge a generator fee? Is that what the plan? Because GB needs to get this money somewhere. And they're not going to get it from the government. They're not going to get it from a gold pot. They're going to get it from the people of St. Martin. So I'm totally against the fact that the financing of this is shrouded in mystery. My proposal is float a local bond via the central bank. Have the wealthiest companies within the country who can absorb such a shock buy into such a bond. They would be happy to do it. They have a 30-year central bank bond that does not have to be repaid immediately at a 1 or 2% interest rate. And it's in their best interest that GB gets back online, because you saw the SHTA report where their businesses are being affected. Now you only have maybe 30 or 25 entities in St. Martin that are paying for these generators instead of tens of thousands of people in our country. The financing needs to come to the forefront with these ideas.
All right, now, anything? Are you good?
I leave
All
Jimmy
right.
to express.
All right. I listened to all of the answers that I got. My host here said, MP Roseberg, he wants to know what you're going to do until re-elected. GB is one. You're going to be in office until October. I want to know what you're going to do now. So with that, one of your coalition partners, who's supposed to be sitting next to Mr. Bryson, but copped out, here. He mentioned on the floor of Parliament, and I'm going to ask you because, remember, he's your coalition partner.
Coalition or coalition?
Coalition.
Just check it.
Coalition partner that says, the pension fund. He said, use the pension fund to purchase generator. Do you believe that is a feasible solution considering the current predicament the island is facing with electricity, internet, governmental issues? What would you say to someone who believes that Sabre Station and Bonaire are doing better than St. Martin, given that they went in the other direction in terms of the economy?
BB, First of all, I'm here as MP Roseberg. I cannot speak on what my other colleagues stated or not. As a member of parliament, I'm here to represent the people of St. Martin. Yes, I'm in a coalition, but I am not of the opinion that because I'm in a coalition that I know all the answers. I know the answers to what I know, and if I don't know the answers, I will seek clarification. That's my job as a member of parliament. In regards to what I am going to do with GB, I mentioned communication to the public is very important. If I can look legal-wise, how I can contribute, I will do that. And that's what I mentioned. Finding the money is a job within government. And as I said, the Prime Minister made it clear what he's currently doing. I believe we need to look at ending of July, beginning of August, if something is happening. We are often ready to say, okay, it's not working. You should find another solution. But why don't we let it play out? Because this GB issue didn't start it today. It didn't start it yesterday. It's hampering us all. But what has been done in the past? I don't like to go back to the past too often, but I'm not going to sit here and act like, okay, GB happened the past 4 months and a miracle will happen. We can do it 1, 2, 3. We need to be transparent and real with the people. And at this moment, there is a plan, a detailed plan, and let's play it out. There are deadlines mentioned. And if that date does not reach, we will continue from there. But at this moment, politically, it's being used as, okay, there's no communication, no transparency. But didn't you elect your members? Don't you need to let the government do what needs to be done and follow the procedures in that regard? That's my opinion. So I will leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to totally disagree with what the MP is saying here. What you will notice, and it's interesting on the outside looking in to see what I've been seeing in Parliament. Bibi, you pressed on a very direct question on the solution. Okay, the pension fund fine, I agree with her. Maybe she doesn't want to address it, but you pressed for a solution. What you tend to see is that members of the governing coalition, when pressed with a solution and not be able to provide one, the first thing they do is, well, jump to the past, and that's not helping anyone. When you say that they're communicating the solution, I will reiterate again, in none of those communication are you telling the people of St. Martin who's paying for this $30 million. And then she stated, finding the money is the job of the government? Absolutely not. The number one role of a member of parliament that's in the Constitution every single year is the finances of the country. Anything that the finances of the country, loans, bonds, expenses, personnel, that cannot be done without a budget amendment, without the parliament saying yes or no. So once again, all of the government-owned companies, we must see that within the budget. So my question is, why have none of the members of parliament gotten that answer before just saying, don't worry, my prime minister is going to come with a solution? It's a very dangerous thing for St. Martin. We have to remember how this has hurt us in the past, where we did financing and a temporary turnover tax came. How temporary did that turn out to be? Are we going to end up with a temporary generator fee that's now going to be a permanent problem for our people? This needs to be resolved and answered.
All right, thank you.
Our international problem, in my estimation, is the fear of saying, I do not know. And using the words, I don't know. And by not doing that, before you know it, you're 1, 2, 3 months further looking for a solution where you could have worked together and find a solution a long time ago. One thing I heard the MP said that I tend to disagree with is the word or the sentence, let it play out. We don't have that time. Some people don't even have that opportunity because let it play out. Let it play out for the business person. Let it play out for the senior that can't stay in the heat when they're sleeping at night and have to go on their porch. Let it play out for the person that can't afford staying home in the afternoon because whatever electricity energy problem. Let it play out is a very dangerous word to use because there are people out there that cannot afford to wait. So when I say what other options, we can't sit here and act like if we just take money from this pot, it's going to fix that solution. When we sit down here and we say we're going to become elected, or we want to put our names in a hat to become elected, I think what is passed, and that's what the MP just said, the main responsibility of an elected official is to figure out what the financial ramifications are of certain decisions. And loosely saying things like one day the island is bankrupt to saying the next day the island's going to take money from this and the island's going to take money from there, that changes the narrative and confuses the people. And that is something we have to always do our best to stay away from, whether or not it's politics or outer politics.
Yes, I would like to shortly react to that, Andrew and BB. I'm hearing what my fellow debaters are stating, but what I'm not going to allow to happen is that now, in this situation that we are in, knowing what is currently happening with GB, if the answers were so simple, 1, 2, 3, they would have been presented and we wouldn't have been here. So at this moment, I believe, and with letting it play out, I mean, there is a timeline. It is not, okay, people, we will see what will happen, and yes, we leave it as it is. No, there is a timeline, and let's see what this timeline is going to do with us. Because we need to be real. If it was a solution that could have been solved a long time, because I can remember when we had the interim government, when we were making sure that the new government was being installed, those questions in regard to GB were very vague answered. And I was asking myself, why is that? Other than that, if you look at the management of GB, the questions are very vague. So we have procedures to follow. People might say, yeah, fire management, do this, do that, but there is procedure to follow. And therefore, I'm not going to allow for us to sit here and say, yes, there need to be a clear solution, this, that. I agree. But let's look back. I don't like to do it, but let's look back. What happened? What was prepared for us to don't be in this situation? So, my dear colleagues, they mentioned it, but I'm not going to allow that to be said like that.
Wait, hold on, Mr. York.
Yeah, but then we're going back and forward. If we're going in this line and you ask me a question, they reacted to me, then it's not. How are we doing that?
Giving everybody a chance. That's it.
No, it's just I know you can rebut, but you can also do refutation. But
Because
Yeah, and I mean, GB is the topic.
I would want to hear.
But I didn't hear anything from the Sam party, so I just wanted to know if the Sam party.
No, I would have preferred to hear what he was saying.
Right.
I would rather hear.
Can I
You want to
take?
hear my point? Or I could.
Would you
yield.
relinquish your speaking time
Can
to
I
me?
yield, or can you want to hear my
I
opinion?
know because it's a different political party stance.
No, here's my thing on GB, right? And I think MP Roseberg kind of go in the direction of how I think as a person. I'm not a GB expert. I've been in places where I've seen a number of proposals. I've heard, I always listen to the logic in the arguments, and I've heard some very good arguments with some very good logic. I'm a linguist. I'm a professor. I can do law. I leave that to the professionals. That conversation there, I'm not that person. But what I'll say about GB that I know as a St. Martino is that I grew up in St. Martin where we didn't have current. I remember when 6 o'clock, we all used to scatter to run home to get current because we knew current was coming on 6 and we know it was going to end at 12 o'clock. I know that time. I remember when we had a fridge and we didn't know what to put in it because we didn't know what to do because we wasn't having current till 12 o'clock. So I hear the St. Martiners and the feeling. I know that today electricity and all of this is a priority, but I also understand the privilege that I have to live in a St. Martin where today we have 24 hours current with a temporary inconvenience. I work online, so it affects my livelihood directly. But what I do, the 2 hours that I know it's off, I go outside of my yard. Or I go to sleep. I find something else to do because I don't want to let that make that my issue as a St. Martiner who's seen what it used to look like to where we are today to make that a major issue. So I leave that to the professionals. As a citizen, I say, show gratitude, and I understand what you're talking about because I'm saying it's affecting my livelihood. But at the same time, we can remember that today we have members in the Caribbean community who are without electricity due to the passing of hurricanes, and we should also take that into consideration.
All right. Just
Short one.
as a.
No, you're given the time now.
Just a short point.
Hold on.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanna make sure that, because this is another aspect that I don't know if our elected officials or even the public are taking into account. The GB, for example, yes, if it was a situation where outages are happening and so on, it's a temporary thing and it's not so major. we would not have to hit the panic button the way we're doing it now. But ultimately, these outages are going to affect healthcare, social, GB, roads, etc. You know why? Because if businesses are operating 20% less than they were, if people are working 20% less than they do, then your budget to be able to do things in healthcare, education, whatever it is also going to fall. We're going to end up in a situation that if real solutions with smart financing, for the record, I have provided a solution that is realistic and well researched. It's been done before for the bridge and other things within the country. I think we can do that for GB. But don't look at GB as just a power outage or a flickering light. This is something that's having deep impact across our entire economy.
We're going to take a commercial break. Of course, we'll be right back with the great debate with the four parties represented here. Right here at the college.
Man, my data just ran out.
Here, you can use my phone.
Thank you. Come on, man. My data finished again.
Relax, honey. You can always use mine.
Wait, how come you always have so much data?
I told you I switched to Telem mobile postpaid plans. Those plans come with plenty of data, so I will never run out of data again.
Okay, well, why don't you come over here and show me more about these plans? Because I'm about to switch to Telem data now.
Good afternoon again. Welcome back to the great debate with Andrew Dick and the dynamic duo. My question is for the National Alliance number 5. If elected, what solutions are you intending to present that will benefit teachers across the board? Presently, teachers working at government-subsidized schools are not receiving their COLA. How do you intend to fix it?
First, you have to figure out why it's where it went wrong. Because we're sitting down here and we're saying, 1% this year, the 1% next year, but seemingly something is structurally wrong in the manner in which it's being shared out or is being shared. So my intention, even though I'm not in a financial department to know exactly how they do it right now, would be to look back at the financial ramifications of doing it the way they're doing it now, which is the problem we have today, and looking into different avenues and how to do it moving forward. But I don't believe the only problem, the COLA is the only problem that subsidized teachers are being faced with right now. we tend to look at education as a solely educational problem, but right now it's also a structural problem in the structures of which they're conducting their education. If you go to a lot of classrooms right now, you either see mold, you either see a lack of class material, or you either see a lack of upgrading of the material that they already have. And I think that's also a major irritation to a lot of school teachers and a bottleneck in how they want to educate their students moving forward. So coming back on that would be a structural, in the current building code, there's nothing when it comes to prevention and there's nothing when it comes to follow up. So these important, I would look at landmarks in our community, which are the schools. They receive little to no attention when it comes to now. We want to put air codes in the schools, but they are not like the proper electrical framework in place to be able to do that in a timely fashion. And that is because of not having the proper things in the policies to ensure that the buildings stay up to date for these things in the future. And a lot of times we sit back and wait on the problem to happen before we think on the solutions. But seeing what the problem is right now, we need to put the proper legislation in place moving forward to ensure that these things don't happen again moving forward. And that is what I would bring to Parliament once elected.
And moving through battles.
Yeah, thank you, Bibi. I would like to add to what Daryl just mentioned, Mr. York. Education is key. We cannot say that the education system needs to be fixed, but the proper material is not in place. Once the educational system is arranged in a way that kids go to school, feel happy, feel appreciated, teachers also go to school being happy in the environment that they are teaching the kids. It's 8 hours of school, right? A long time that I can remember, at least a long time of your day you're in school. So when that system is in place that you can have equality in education, because at this moment I believe that's not the case, that you have also access to funding, European funding, funding that can make sure that the schooling system is up to par where it should be. I believe that both the students and the teachers will have a better working and learning environment and can focus on what needs to be focused on, which is education.
Dr. Arnold?
Me, I want to see if I get your question, because there were two parts there. If elected, what solutions would you present for teachers? And then you asked something about COLA.
Yes.
So,
right now,
so which are you referring to?
the COLA. I want to know, what are you going to do for especially government subsidized teachers, school teachers? Like they paid 1% in December. To date, teachers working for government subsidized school have not received that 1%. And I think the current government is supposed to be paying another 2%. And the information we're getting when tackling ministers and asking them about this, they're saying, well, you know what? It's the school board who's supposed to pay. But if you don't give the school board additional money to pay the COLA, how will they pay?
See, exactly. I'm curious about this question, because if elected, it will be on August 19th moving forward.
Yes,
And
so
from what I'm hearing is that this information is supposed to have been resolved before August 19th, according to what I'm hearing. Then I can't do anything when I get elected on 19th of August, because that would have been resolved.
But they owed more.
But
But
this
it'll be in the future.
that's my question. Are you asking about in general, or you're talking about a specific question?
In general.
Okay, so here's how I feel about fixing teachers' issues, period, and this thing called cost of living adjustment, because I think that's the question. Because this specific situation should have been resolved by August 19th, right? If I understand correctly. So I'm going to go to the general, how I feel about teachers and things like cost of living adjustment. I take, as a professional educator, and I want to say this, because I think education is one of the few fields that people treat like a stepchild. Whereas I do not question a pilot on driving and how to fly a plane. I get in and put in my seatbelts and I do what he tells me to do. I don't question a surgeon when it comes to how to do it. And I think with education, people take for granted that anybody can have an opinion on how to be an educator. My take is that teachers ought to be treated like professionals. And when you treat a teacher like a professional, you accept that that's the person that has the authority, the understanding of what it means to be a teacher in the classroom. And so you put legislation in place. I already did my research. I have here a proposal for how to revamp the education system and how to make teachers professionals where you respect their authority as teachers, and then you pay them accordingly. And one of the things in there is how to give them incentives for going beyond the minimum requirement of the teaching degree, and so that they are rewarded for going beyond. And then you don't have to deal with an automatic cost of living adjustment because some people may merit it and others not. And that's part of the problem that we're having with the system that is making the system bankrupt. So I would like to look at the teaching profession like any other profession and treat teachers as professionals where they're awarded and respected according to their skills, but also you make it so that they are their position is respected. That's my approach.
The issues of the teachers reminds me very much to the issue I faced in 2019, 2020 with the police, where a lot of people that were elected over the years were not honest about the main issue. There is no funding. They don't know how to find the funding to solve all of these great ideas that I heard. I would be doing the same thing that I did for the police, I will now do for the teachers. We find a strategic asset that is owned by the government that gives absolutely nothing to the country. UTS was such a company. We have Sabre Bank NV, for example. We get no income for 14 years. UpNet NB, which was supposed to be an investment bank, it only operates really in Curacao. We get zero income from this. We strategically, just like with the UTS law, get about between 25 to 30 million guilders because before right now the teachers have lost trust. They've heard all of us say we're going to come in to fix it. But now when this law passes and they saw how it worked for the police with what I did, they will have the confidence to understand that by law, these funds are put aside to make sure that all of these ideas we heard, the way to pave the road to get there is by bringing such a piece of legislation. The good thing is I have the template, I've done it before, and I know I'll be able to do it again, just like I did for the police. I will be able to do it for the teachers. And now the education system can kind of say, show me the money, well, there's the answer. And then I would work together with colleagues like Rhoda that has these great ideas here and say, how does this fit within that budget? How do we rescale the salaries within this budget? Add up all the retroactive payment within this budget and let's give the teachers what they deserve.
Can we move on to
Wait. What I'd like to rebut, everything is fine and dandy when we sit here and we say, okay, we're going to take the money from here and do that, or we're going to reform this and we're going to do that. But we're falling in the same cycle that we've always done. We have a current system. For example, we initiated the FBA system years ago. That system has never been evaluated. That system has never...
It's been evaluated. There's a TWO report on it.
There's a WO report on it.
There's a
TWO report on it, but the teachers are still complaining the same thing today as they've been
evaluated.
And has not been done.
And it's no good. That's what we say.
Exactly, and it's still there.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I have a proposal to fix it.
You have a proposal to fix it.
Yes, sir.
But at the end of the day, it is still there. And that's what we're speaking about right now. What is there, not is what is coming. So the point is, and sorry if I misunderstood,
that's
because it sounded more like you were more looking at how the teachers are being appreciated when it comes to
what we would do to professionalize them. Yeah.
I didn't get that from the structure, about the structure part of it. So seemingly that is covered. But what I said, what I meant was to say structure and appreciation of what the teachers are going through right now, because we're sitting right here and acting, aside from Dr. Arundel, like we know the struggles of the teachers, and the struggles of the teachers is not just only money.
Right.
You, for example, you alluded to the subsidized school teachers, but also there's a difference between subsidized school teachers and the public school teachers and how they feel amongst each other about the way they're treated. And I didn't hear that name just now in your question.
Right.
So a lot of times we tend to make the problem that we see as the main problem, and then we tend to attack that, and the teacher's sitting back and wondering, like, hey, but we have all these other things that you guys are not paying attention to. Who said that that's the main problem?
Exactly.
And that is what we gotta stop acting like we have all the answers and we know what their problems are, and we have to more involve them and take them more seriously.
I think one of the main things there,
that's not right.
What's the main complaint that you hear?
teachers need to pay their bills.
That's it.
And if they need
Let's
to
be
pay
real.
their bills,
Yes.
cost of living adjustment is something they depend on to pay that school fee for a child that's coming in.
But also the teachers that come, they have a lot of teachers right now that can't even get the immigration paper set up to be able to work permits and all those type of things. So those are things that also the teachers are suffering, because if you can't get your work permit in time, you can't assist the next teacher in time. So basically, who loses in that situation? That's the student.
I agree.
So a lot of times we focus in.
You may not have a roof over your head.
Yeah, but that's not paying the bill. But at the same time, if you don't get that person's immigration paper set up in the correct way, that student doesn't get the attention that's needed. And the person that still can't pay the bill is going to be overworked, to which they're going to be even more irritated and more annoyed. And who pays from all of that? The student.
Agreed. my other question, and this is very recent, it's a hot topic. I think MP Roseberg, I think, is calling on her minister in government to give some explanations. And I would like to hear from you that.
Oh.
Recently, the Minister of Justice took a decision to bring back an illegal immigrant who was born in St. Martin but was deported. If he left, how do you intend to remedy such a situation so that it does not happen to another person that was born in St. Martin?
Someone else, right?
No, you gotta direct it to somebody.
Okay.
I will end.
Oh.
Okay.
But it's her minister.
It's our minister. You know, you have to remember, right? When you're in parliament.
I guess let her start.
No, because it's being said like it's your minister. It's Country St. Martin's minister, and I do not. Or
We're not.
No, but again, seeing the remark that was made and seeing that my dear colleague debater mentioned, let me start. I do have to make a remark stating that as a member of parliament, in my opinion, coalition or no coalition, you should be asking questions. I have seen my dear colleague, previous being an MP as well, being actively involved asking questions. So I do not think you need to look at, oh, it's a coalition because I read the media. Oh, how is it possible that she asked her coalition minister a question? I focus on doing the job. I saw this happening and I was happy that it happened because remember, as a lawyer, I have seen a lot of born St. Martiners being deported. So seeing, also with children involved, right? So seeing that the minister managed to do so and it was publicized in the media, I got a lot of reactions. Ms. Roseberg, what happened? I want to know as well. So I messaged the minister and I informed him this is what's happening. And I mentioned I will send a letter to Parliament and also bring it to the attention of the people. So that's what I did. I congratulated him on this amazing result. And I also asked, if you read the article, I don't know if everybody read it, but based on my questions, it was more, how can others in situations similar to this lady also make use of what was presented? And I'm just asking so that eventually the people can be informed and they know what kind of policy is in place and we can follow that policy. And to elucidate on the further question, the law, we need to look at the law, and I'm looking at the law, but isn't it extra work if I'm going to look at the law without knowing what current policy is in place? So once I have the answers to the questions I posed, I will make sure that I make adjustments to make sure that there's an LBHAM in place. As my dear colleague also said, that would be wise.
All right.
All right, Bryson.
But Bibi, what's your question? Initially, what's your question? Is the question is what do you think of what happened, or if elected, what you will do?
So more or less the stateless.
Yeah, that's the point I want to address.
So the stateless person, somebody born in St. Martin who doesn't have the necessary paperwork.
Yes.
What would you do to remedy that?
Yes.
Okay,
Want me to go?
you go.
Because I just want to tackle it purely from what we already had this discussion within the Parliament and at IPCO. The Netherlands, St. Martin, all of us are party to the 1954 Convention on Statelessness.
Mhm.
This is something that countries have agreed. And let's put the law aside for a minute. From an empathetic perspective, a child born in St. Martin is innocent. They have nothing, they have not born by choice. It is, in my opinion, the responsibility that the country, looking at the 1954 Convention that outlines how you do it, we simply have to make a change to our admission and expulsion law that states that those born in St. Martin are entitled to permanent residence. That is something that we have to legislate. We have to make that amendment because, again, from the legal perspective and from the human perspective, that would be something that has to be done. And I think it has to be done retroactively as well to sufficiently cover those that are still in this situation, trying to get into school, trying to get a job, but they are now just completely stateless in our country, born St. Martiners. So that would be the first step I would take. Further to that, though, I think we have to remember that the way we project things in our country, it's something that I try to be very conscious of as a member of Parliament. Every release, every statement you make, I learned that initially in Parliament, that you would put out a statement and people might read it the wrong way. It might not be your intention, but I have to admit, sometimes maybe the tone of what you write can come across like you're upset that something has happened. Oftentimes, to avoid that as a member of Parliament, you make sure that you consult together, like, we mentioned working together and so on. And maybe your first part of the release, you focus on the success of what was done, what I would do different in Parliament. Maybe you call a technical meeting of the Justice Committee. You handle these type of things in there. But generally speaking, I would be surprised if a human being has an issue with a mother being reunited with their children. That is something we should applaud, and that is something we should legislate to make sure it never happens again.
Could go.
Yes.
Two things that hurt me, triggered me right there. Illegal immigrant born in St. Martin.
Yeah.
In my view, if you're born in St. Martin, you
You're
can't
not
be an
illegal.
illegal.
Yeah.
First of all, and you can't be an immigrant because you're born, right? So, but here's the thing, apart from having to, because I agree, every St. Martin child born in St. Martin belongs there, and I agree with the International Convention to keep families together, because my focus is always people first. And it says something about you as a society when in your laws, you put the law or the regulation above the people. To me, that doesn't make any sense. You look at the humanity first, and then, because remember, laws are intended to serve people. And if the laws are not serving people, then we're not doing it right. So we need to go fix the laws so it can serve the people. Now, in an independent state, you don't have to worry about going to anybody, to asking them, because who is the state? Because you're talking about statehood. Who gives nationality in St. Martin? Who gives statehood? Not the St. Martin. Not the St. Martin people. Nationality belongs to the Kingdom of the Netherlands. That's not yours to give. So now you're going to have a conversation about whether or not you will permit your people to have residency in your space. When you're an independent state, you don't have to do that. You make those determinations yourself. And then you decide that you will claim every St. Martiner born in St. Martin. You can make that so easy, like every other country in the world that does that. That's the conversation I want to have. How do we prepare and protect our St. Martin people so we could build a future of prosperity for everybody? And we don't have to have a conversation with anybody else.
At the end of the day, it comes down to one simple question that for the last decade, people have been running around. What is a St. Martiner?
I got that.
That's basically what it comes down to. And what is a St. Martiner? I'm sure the question can be answered, but that needs to be put on paper and made official. Because laws are there, like the previous speaker said, to protect, but also work in the best interest of the people and not work against the people. And right now, that particular law, because of the status we are in, has a lot of red tape, which effectively works against the people. Because right now, you have people that born St. Martin with, for example, a foreign heritage, and from the time they got picked up from immigration, they're being sent back to a country they've never been, they know nothing about, and they're not from, right? And that is piggybacking based off of what just happened with the family being reunited after so many years. But basically, it comes down to what is the St. Martiner and making that official, and that could come in various forms. It could either come in the form of reform to what we already have, which is a lengthy process, or we just say we're going to nip it in the bud and actually define St. Martin as a whole with the whole independence.
Yeah.
So can I add to that?
Yes.
Just to clarify as well. At the end, it's all about the people, as my colleagues all stated, and I stick to that all the people should have accessibility to the same treatment and the same laws. And if we currently see, for example, that this amazing situation happened, and indeed we should look into how this can be avoided. But if in the past, for example, these situations happened already, what are we going to do with those situations? Because the human rights for all should be respected, and that's what we need to look at. And if you look at the current law, if you look at the articles in the current law, it states that when you are on St. Martin, born on St. Martin, if I look at Article 3, and one of the subs to that article, persons in St. Martin born that don't have the Dutch nationality will get residency mits if they are 16 years. So, and if they have stayed on St. Martin, onafgebroken, so without
uninterrupted.
Yeah, thank you, uninterrupted in St. Martin. So sometimes situations case by case, it might be something different. So we need to look at, okay, if a person was born in St. Martin but not onafgebroken, help me, Rhoda.
Uninterrupted.
Uninterruptedly live on St. Martin. What do we do in cases like that? And we need to change the law for that. But the law is there, so let's make changes.
There's a lot of laws that needs to be changed
For sure.
where immigration is
For
concerned.
sure, for sure.
There are even right now people who are in the system right now for getting their residency, but then the law comes in. If you ever fell in problems with the law, you
Indeed.
automatically fall out of those opportunities. So now you're going to tell a person who fell in trouble with the law years back, completely changed their lives, who
Indeed.
wants to do it the right way,
Yeah.
that you cannot do it the right way because the law states you are being withheld from becoming a citizen of St. Martin, which would allow you to open a business, would allow you to do things officially, which allow you to make money the right way.
And that's why it's
And
important to have the policies revamped to
And
see
a
what
lot
is
of
there.
a lot of times we have the good intentions when we inquire on things, but like the old people say, sometimes it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. And I think sometimes that is where the miscommunication happens.
No, as a follow-up to that particular topic for BB, yeah, who is a St. Martin, according to your standpoint?
That I recommend it. I've been using it publicly all on social media. I
That's
don't know
good then, Doc.
if you guys know, because, you know, again, this conversation about nationality and St. Martin, and to me, those two things are antithetical, because not because you have a Dutch nationality make you a St. Martin, period, right? But I'll read through the list that we prepared and we've been working on it. This is my working definition. A St. Martin is a person born in St. Martin, period, any side. A St. Martin is a person whose parents are from either side of St. Martin. A St. Martin is a person who was adopted in St. Martin, but by at least one St. Martin parent. A St. Martin is any person born elsewhere but raised and formed in St. Martin, espousing the St. Martin cultural values uninterruptedly for no less than 10 years. A person married to a St. Martin or who has resided in St. Martin for no less than 5 years and actively contributing to the well-being of the St. Martin nation. A person who's registered, domiciled, or has lived in St. Martin for minimally 20 years uninterruptedly and contributes to the overall well-being of the St. Martin nation. And there are a number of things, but I'm saying today is that the St. Martin for me has nothing to do with nationality, because we know people who have nationality and are not St. Martiners, they don't even espouse the St. Martin cultural values. And again, I operate from culture, I operate from identity and heritage, and to me, those are my list, and it's not an exhaustive list. It's a list that I have thrown out for discussion, and like my fellow participant here said, it should be codified, but I think we need to start to put it down, but I want to have the discussion, because there's too many things. There's an expression that not because the cat makes kittens in the oven makes it bread, right? But the person born here is automatically a St. Martin. That isn't a discussion in my book. And as a St. Martin of heritage from both sides of the island that people keep trying to divide, I am not going to let that be a discussion. This will go on until I die. I will defend the 37 square miles until I die. That's it.
Thank you, thank you.
Is there any rebuttal or we good? Okay.
Just to add, this is a discussion, like you mentioned. I was very pleased to finally bring at the forefront in Parliament. This list, among others, was presented, and I agree with much of it. One of the things I would add is the context of people who immigrated to this country, more or less when St. Martin was nothing, and came to help build the country. What we identified is that those between the years of 1953, when there was the first major renovation to the Princess Juliana International Airport, into 1963, when the Mullet Bay property became the first major property in St. Martin on that side. Maybe we could add current too, because that means you came to St. Martin, whether light or dark, you was here to help contribute to the country. Those are factors you can add. However, in addition to that, because I like to deal with the anxiety that I feel from some people and the discomfort they have with that topic. Am I going to be left out? And my answer to that is look at what other Caribbean countries have done. They have the Anguillian, for example, but they also have the status of belonger.
Right.
So you are still someone that you basically have three status within the country. You are an immigrant, you have arrived. You have contributed, you are a belonger. And then you go into this factor that we as parliamentarians put together, and now you become a St. Martiner. And when you do that, you also allow the privileges for the St. Martiner to come in. Because one of the things, for example, who can have a bus or taxi, who can have a sole proprietor and so on, the term St. Martiner is kind of thrown out. But without this definition coming into place, we want to give privileges to our St. Martiners. And having this definition would allow us to create that.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with anything that has been previously been said. But again, one speaker alluded to it earlier, but I feel the next one is going around it a bit. These things all those ideas have just been shared are not possible in the current status that we are. It's just not possible. So we can't say one way we're not ready. It's not possible.
Sorry.
It's not possible because it would have already been done. A lot of things when it comes to changing a lot of Dutch regulation is not possible by changing it around in the current immigration process that we have. It's just not possible. Why hasn't it not been done?
But can I say something? Because we're not talking about the Dutch citizenship.
Yeah.
We're talking about the St. Martiner. This has nothing to do with Dutch nationality and Dutch citizenship. In our parliament, we can decide and define who the St. Martiner is.
Does this
We
person
can.
What kind of passport?
That's those
No,
are
but
people
that's-
who don't have a St. Martin passport. This has nothing to do with passport. This is a cultural identity definition we're talking about. And this is what United Nations talks about. You have a cultural identity, you have a nationality. Those two things don't have to necessarily be the same.
Yeah,
They don't
Puerto Rican is in
necessarily
America.
say anybody born in the United States of America is an American automatically,
Yeah.
but you also because you're an independent country, you can say therefore is confer the American nationality.
Yeah.
We are not an independent country, so we cannot confer nationality. But cultural identity,
Absolutely.
we definitely is in our hands. It is not in anybody else's
While
hands.
we may have a very good cultural identity, the status of a person is affected.
That's what I mean.
We're not discussing the face status. He asked
Hold
us the
on.
definition of the St. Martiner.
Guys,
That was the question.
I think the conversation slowly went in a particular direction to where that led to my response. Because the initial question, my response had nothing to do with the initial question. It has to do with where the conversation was going. The way it was going was more official status of a St. Martiner, in my estimation, for what I was understanding. And what the ramifications of that.
Right, and you can in your parliament said that there are certain privileges afforded.
And
as
that
well.
was my next question, because with that, you would have to attach the privileges and the pros and cons of having such a status. Yes.
Yeah.
To determine what.
But to be clear, that can be done and should be done and will be done if elected, because it is a parliamentary decision. It does not even require a constitutional change. That is something with local legislation that you can and should establish.
Okay.
All right, let me ask my final question. Folks, we are boiling down on time. I don't think we have 10 minutes left.
Why is that?
There is a statement that has been made by the missionary government. St. Martin is bankrupt. With that statement, yet elections was called after being in office for 17 days. We are now approaching snap elections. How do you explain a bankrupt country calling elections? How do you explain this to the common man, and especially voters that are expressing how disgusted they are and that they will not vote?
I guess you got somebody.
We asked the question
I'm asking a question that's starting off from this side, from Ms. Roseberg.
As expected, before answering the question, and GB, say by GB. So, in regards to the question asked, before going into that, as you can see, the 4 people that are currently sitting here, I'm the only one that is elected and is a member of parliament, and I decided to show up because I find it important to have that conversation, even if there are difficult questions and things that have been said, maybe not by me, I'm still here.
Yes.
That being said, the Prime Minister made his remark, but I think we need to look at the bigger picture, because if no election was called, we would have stayed in the situation that we are currently in, still a minority, which is not stable apparently, because you have certain individuals that are not in parliament to work, but are there clearly, in my opinion, for self-gain, and I said it here, the switch took place. So I'm seeing this as an opportunity for the people of St. Martin to go to the polls, make sure you give a clear mandate, and look at people, piece by piece, one by one, who can represent you on the floor of parliament so that you can avoid situation like this to happen again, that you will have stability and that you have people in parliament that are knowledgeable, willing to learn from the other members, and that together you can indeed push laws. Because it's impossible for us to have members in parliament that are not stable, that are easy to switch. We cannot afford it as St. Martin. So therefore, I see this as a second chance to look at who postulated themselves and who are you going to choose to elect, to be elected and represent you on the floor of parliament. Because at the end, it is for all the people of St. Martin, country above self, as I have been stating. So therefore, a second chance to focus on your representative.
Mr. York. That was a perfect answer for not having an answer. You know,
Facts.
growing up,
Use it.
I heard the saying "loose lips sink ships," and to piggyback off of what my colleague speaker just said, what you want to avoid in this upcoming election is people that say one thing, think next, and do another. Merely saying things like the country is bankrupt to get a political raise out of the society, I don't think everyone thought through what ramifications that would bring for the country, internationally, financially. Right now, GB right now is looking for loans from various entities that would have questions right now pertaining to the things that were shared weeks ago, or basically when the island looks, CFT, who came with a report months ago, and now they're hearing the country is bankrupt, will make them question if the information given to them was true or not. You know, these things that are still up to this day are being loosely thrown out there with no facts or anything to substantiate it. Basically, it's putting the island in a negative light, in a negative state. And again, you have politics and you have governing. A lot of times people forget to put aside the politics and to actually govern, because you can't say one day we should lean less on the government, on Holland, and the next day you're saying you're flying out to ask for grants from Holland. You can't say one day we're bankrupt, but the other day you're saying we have enough money to handle the crisis that we have right now. You can't, you know, a good friend of mine said, you know, government of contradiction. And I don't want to use those terms lightly, but again, we can't use certain terms and not expect certain ramifications or certain things that comes with those things to follow. So in this upcoming election, vote for the person that will say what they say, mean what they say, and stand behind what they're saying, and not just say things and then have the person sitting next to them trying to distance themselves or to go around answering the question or whatever. Say what you mean what you say.
All right, Dr. Rowe.
Oh, wow. Let me be honest. In January 2024, I had a conversation with leadership and members, and I thought that was it for me. I'm done. I mean, and the day, you know, I said I'm off to DC. I've given what I could. And, you know, I'm not working. I'm not getting permanent job in my home country. But I'm going to use my skills elsewhere, and I'm off. And I wished up well. And I said, remember that meeting? And I said, I'm off here. This is enough for me. I can't do this anymore. And so when the election came, I sat by my device and I waited patiently. I said, God, whatever you do, just make a change. That was my call to God. I basically threw the thing in the air, wherever fall down, we're going to live with it for the next 4 years. But it has to be a change because I didn't like the direction the island was going. I expressed as much to my colleagues, and I said, I'm going to use my skills elsewhere. And then I landed, and within 2 days, government was thrown down. And it reminded me of 2012 when it happened. And that's what hurt me more than anything else. It's like, God, can we even get this right? And it's been like that from 2012. And and I'm going to echo the sentiments here. Sometimes, you know, it's just the players. The system allows it. So that's why Sam is championing reform. And I believe and I know that Sam once in there is going to work. That has been the priority number one. We're going to make reform. But it's more than just the structure that we need to change. The characters that are going in there as well are the ones that, because I was happy to say, okay, I've done my part. I'm working with a group of youngsters on one St. Martin, and we're gonna let the younger ones come forward and move on. I want to retire nicely back in St. Martin. I was asked to come back and try one last time. And I've been called to serve, and I'm telling you, St. Martin, I am going to give this election my best shot because I believe that my skills can be used here. I want to work here in St. Martin using my skills, and I see this election as an opportunity. And I leave the rest of the politicians to work out the politics of it, but I'm going to give this my best shot.
Thank you, politician Ariel.
Yes.
Let's go to
Yes.
To answer the question directly, the St. Martin is bankrupt statement, in my opinion, especially the context at the time, was a sort of an emotional hijacking. It was probably the only way he found a way to get the emotions of the people to understand, oh my God, it's such a bad situation that I have to call the elections. It was a very hasty, irresponsible decision when you even just look at it politically, because had he waited a few days, had he done what I would have done, which I've had to do during my 4-year tenure where I kept the government together, where somebody might pull the support and say, like GB.
That's GB.
GB just
Pull my support again. I'll have to start over. The term St. Martin is bankrupt was, in my opinion, a reaction to his situation in the context where he could not justify the very irresponsible, hasty decision that was made and resorted to emotional hijacking. It was his first statement to the people after calling on the election, and what he's going to say, it's bankrupt. Oh God, this is how bad it is. And it was factually completely not true. When you look at, the fact that he called the election so hasty, it also shows the sort of emotional decision, the lack of leadership, where if you really look back, he should have done what maybe I had to do over the last 4 years, which is say, hold on, guys, before this government break or anything, let's sit down and talk. People of St. Martin, yes, Mr. Mingret has pulled his support, but I asked you for a couple of weeks because I'm going to continue to have some discussions to see if this situation can be resolved. Had he done that, what turned out? Mr. Mingret decided otherwise. We would have had no election. They would have been able to continue. And I must say, in my opinion, I sympathize with MP Roseberg because what her leader did is a disservice to her. Because now she's a new member of parliament coming into parliament, and now instead of focusing on the work she has to do, she has to now go back to the polls. Whereas we could have simply either try to resolve the situation like a leader or accept your fate, move on, whether you go back to the hospital or whatever, but allow MP Roseberg, allow MP Brooke to continue to work. I come into parliament, I'll be working with her. I work across party lines. St. Martin would have been in a much better direction had he not called that election. That was totally unnecessary, and it was a disservice to all 15 representatives and all residents of St. Martin. So in my opinion, to go that far and make such a statement that damages St. Martin's financial position internationally is definitely something he should not have done.
Alrighty.
Wow.
I had to make a secret.
Okay, we've come to the end of our debate today. First of all, again, from all of us at Late Night, we do appreciate the attendance of the wonderful candidates we have here today. It's the journey that we're starting right now until election day on the 19th of August. And of course, it's all about informing the people, no matter on which platform it is. I always believe that if it's given, then just take it, and maybe always promises to play nice. Right? Yeah. So we'll do the final statement. We'll do the final statements. We'll start off with the up, and then we finish off with USF. You can go ahead, the camera over there.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the dynamic duo, as you are called, for organizing this debate. It is unfortunate that so many others decided not to participate and come to speak to the people about important issues and present solutions. I am happy that I was able to come here and speak on the issues, but most importantly, always, as I did as a member of parliament, present the potential solution so that you know that it's not just about what we're going to do, but how we're going to do it. The United People's Party has the track record of working hard for the people when it comes to parliament and within our ministries. I look forward to the opportunity to come back to Parliament, potentially work with some of my colleagues here in the best interest of St. Martin, because that has always been my mantra. Work hard for the people within Parliament, raise the bar and the level of discussion, legislate, and bring stability to both the Parliament and the government of St. Martin. I'm the number 5 candidate on the United People's Party. Let's get it together to keep it together.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. At least we gave indication of the next coalition. Sound representative Dr. Arundel.
Only because OMC in here.
St. Martin. I am Rhoda Arundel. I am the daughter of Janet Minerva Archibald Pompey, once Arundel from St. Vincent. And I say this because my mom said that when the people asked back for the name, she gave it back. So she didn't carry Arundel afterwards. But my father was Rafi Cyril Alexander Arundel. And I tell people this because I stand on their shoulders. If it were not for the sacrifices that my parents made, I would not be here. And one of the things that they taught me, as uneducated formally as they were, was the value of education, how it makes a difference in your life, and how it was important that I get it. And I was able to get it through the sacrifice and hard work of my parents. They also taught me character. They gave me values that I hold very dear today. And so I'm going to ask you, St. Martin, to elect me, a daughter of the soil. I was born in Curacao, but I'm a daughter of the soil. I'm a daughter of the Caribbean. And I ask you to elect me because I'm passionate, because I'm competent, and because I have the right character to defend you and your values. I believe that when we empower people, we can give them back pride in the St. Martin that I knew, that I grew up in, and also lead them to a prosperity for everyone, but we got to do it right. I'm saying I've used my skills everywhere, and I'm asking you, I'm applying for this job to serve you, and I'm asking you to give me the opportunity to use my skills here in St. Martin. Elect candidate number 5 on the SAM list.
Thank you.
People of St. Martin, we often forget that when electing someone, that person that you elect to Parliament needs to reflect what's going on outside there in the everyday society. On August 19th, you're not only electing Daryl York, you're electing someone who's of an immigrant parent and one immigrant parent and one grassroots parent. One immigrant parent who came to St. Martin 30 plus years ago to better his life. And I experienced all the trials and tribulations that came with that. You're also looking at someone who was raised in a household where the main breadwinner was deemed overqualified for umpteen years, to where one could say one experienced poverty and went through all the trials and tribulations where that is concerned. Going through the public school system, making it out the public school system, leaving to go to Holland with exchange to further his studies, coming back and contributing to the island in a very, very positive manner. I think that alone, aside from all the things that I've been doing, is an embodiment of what we've been speaking about here today. So that, coupled with all my views that I've been disseminating to you over the last year, that I have not swayed from, unlike a few others. That is something that I want to bring to you in Parliament coming up. So on August 19th, be wary of who you're voting for, what you're voting for, and foremost, why you are voting. And put that into the person that you're selecting, and hopefully that's number 5 on the NA slate, Daryl York, your voice of choice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
St. Martin, as you know, I am your member of Parliament, and I'm asking you to give me that mandate, as Rolando Bryson mentioned, to re-elect me so that I can continue doing the work that is needed. It is important to have members in Parliament that are working, that are communicating to the public. I have been keeping the public up to date with different videos, informing them about the law. People that are willing to change laws. Election is coming up, but I have been working on some laws, and I will be presenting them pretty soon as well, that can make changes to the lives of the people of St. Martin. Other than that, you need a member of Parliament that dares to stand up, that is not a puppet and has a vision to make sure that St. Martin gets where St. Martin needs to be. I have studied and was born in the Netherlands. I studied law. Afterwards, I decided to come to the Caribbean. A lot of times I hear, but she's not from St. Martin. I was born in the Netherlands, indeed. My mother is from Aruba, my father is from Curacao, and my grandmother is from St. Martin, my grandfather as well. I'm related to the Flemings, Richardsons, Solomon, I can continue. But on the other hand, what does that exactly matters? Doesn't it matter that your representatives represent you, all the people of St. Martin, that bring changes to the law to better your lives? I am there for country above self, and therefore I'm providing you with your advocate for the change. Other than that, as was mentioned, let's continue to raise the bar and choose for 5-star representation. And I'm happy to see other people choosing that as well. 5-star representation, because I'm seeing here people that are willing to work. So let's make sure that we elect those so that we can work together and make sure that St. Martin reaches where it should reach.
Thank you. Okay, Pete, talk forward.
Awesome. Can I look to everybody? I like the girl power, boy power, boy and girl power.
Thank you so much for joining us for the great debate today. To next week, Saturday, we should have another interesting program. Make sure you tune in. Special thanks to SMN News. Of course, we shall be back next week. To the parties, the USM, the National Alliance, the SAM, and the United People's Party. Thank you for showing up. For those who did not, better luck next week. See you.